Lisa, long time no see. Who else? Let's see. Hi, everyone. Hey, Michelle Marcus. Let's see. Hi, everyone. Oh my gosh, so nice to see so many faces. This is going to be so fun. Hey, Kelly.
Okay, you and I are the only ones that are not muted right now. And
Okay.
so I don't know if I can text you or not, but if I need to say something to you, I don't know how to do it, but we'll figure it out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's just you and I now.
just looking at all these nice names, seeing all these fun people. This is so great. I'm so excited.
So there's 45 in right now coming in. It's one, what was the number one? It was over 100 that RSVP'd.
That's fantastic. Good.
Can they hear Kristin?
Yep.
So they can hear you. Can they hear me?
Yep. I know. I'm just looking at all the names. Yep. This is great. Yeah. Yeah. Anissa, who's with us, is one of my friends. She's been with us on Friends in Fiction from the beginning. She and I have become friends, and she was just at my last event too. And I think I see Michelle Marcus too, also, who's become a friend of mine. And she was at my last event. This is great. Thank you so much, ladies. It's so nice of you. I see Kelly, my friends. Ah, this is so nice. Kristen Dwyer. Hi, Kristen. If you're just joining us, everyone, we're going to get started in just a minute. We're just waiting for a few more people to join, but it's nice to be seeing all these names and faces. Familiar names and faces, a lot of them. Hi, Amy Sparkman. Yay. All right.
I need to get my book soon. Actually, I'm talking with Lori right now.
Who is that? Sorry.
I'm talking with Lori right now.
Oh, that was Amy Sparkman. Okay. Hey, Amy, you're talking with Lauren. Tell Lori I said hi. That's so funny.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Lauren from Writer's Block Bookstore. We're just going to wait a few more minutes because I'm seeing all the participants entering the room. So I just want to make sure that everybody is here.
I'm seeing some of these messages. Hey, Therese, thank you. Hi in Altamont Springs. Or Terry, sorry, Terry in Altamont Springs. That's so nice. Thank you for saying you're a big fan. This is so fun. Hey, everybody.
I think we're starting to get used to to online Zooms. Everybody's, you know.
I just have to say, just because this is what happens, somebody's knocking on my door right now. It's 7 o'clock. Like, who's knocking on my door? It's 7 o'clock. Of course, because we just started a Zoom. Sorry, whoever it is. Hey guys, we're going to be starting in just a minute if you're just joining us. We're just waiting for a few more people to join. But thank you all so much for being here. I wish I could be seeing you all in person tonight. It's sad that we can't, right? One of these days, life will be back to normal. Oh, Lauren, unmute yourself there.
Yeah, we hope.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's 7:02. We'll wait one more minute.
Everyone got your, I got my glass of champagne. Everyone have a drink or a water. All right, Amy, cheers. All right, cool. Whatever your beverage of choice, you know, water, soda, wine, whatever. So cheers to everyone. I'm just, I can't see you all on the same screen, so I'm just kind of flipping through to see everybody. This is so nice. While we're waiting.
I think we're going to go ahead and start. I think we're going to, so can everybody hear me? Yes, nod. Okay, so again, my name is Lauren Zimmerman. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how our event is going to go. In the past, we've had live events, and they've all been very successful at Quantum Leap. I know a lot of you are not from Orlando, but we would have them, first we had them in the store, and then we started having them at Quantum Leap Winery, which was a really fun place. And Kristin got to walk around and talk to people. And, and that's the one part that I know that Kristin just misses the most. So what we're gonna have you guys participate tonight and talk to her, even if you're a cousin and you want to say hi, or you read, her books, or you've been friends with her on other avenues. We just want to make it very interactive, very enjoyable. So what we're going to do right now, everybody's muted. Kristin and I are going to start, and then once we're done talking, then what we'll do is we'll allow people to to talk to Kristin. And I think the best way to do it would be to raise your hand. Is there, I'm going to ask my, can you type? Okay, so what we'd like you to do is to type a message that you'd like to be unmuted. I've got somebody here who is helping me, and she's watching all the chats. And when we open it up and you want to talk, we'll type it, we'll unmute you, and we'll just have a grand old time. So let's start. Okay, so we're going to start with, I'm going to have a glass of wine from a bottle that has Kristin cover of her book on it. We've been doing this now. This will be the third year that we've actually put the book plate cover on her book. And so I went ahead and uncorked it and thought I would go ahead and just pour myself a glass of this wine. And it's actually delicious. And I was thinking, well, I'll just drink it while y'all are talking. I'll just drink it right out of the bottle. But we do have limited edition wine bottles, and we'll be sending you the link if you'd like to buy one. We've been doing this for the last 3 years. Quantum Leap, just tell you a little bit about Quantum Leap. They're a local winery in Orlando. And so we support local, and it's a wonderful winery. It's a beautiful place, and they have great wine, and they've just been so supportive to Kristin, and they love her, and they were just as sad that we couldn't have the event there with them as well. And so they made a couple of these commemorative, and this is actually one of my, you never want to say which is your favorite child, but I have to tell you that I love this cover so much.
Me too.
Look at the spine of it. It's a book.
It's really cool. Yeah, you can see.
Gorgeous.
Yep. You want to hear something crazy about it, Lauren? I'll talk about this when we start talking, but the real book of lost names that I based the book on looks exactly like the book on the cover. It's insane. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it was like a meant to be kind of cover. It's crazy.
Yeah. So we have, I think a lot of you have already ordered books, which is great. Thank you so much. Kristin signed. We have so many books here. Kristin has signed them. If you want a signed book, we still have plenty of signed books. I think it's a great book for your bookshelf because the cover's so gorgeous. The story is fabulous, and it's signed. So I just want to tell you a little bit about our relationship. I opened up a bookstore about almost 7 years ago, and I opened it up on a side street in Winter Park. And I get a call from Kristin, within a month of me opening, saying, I'm going to have a book launch. I'm going to be publishing my book, and I like to support local businesses. And in the past, I did it at a friend's dress store. I really like to do it, at your store. And I was all excited, and it's like, oh my God, my first book launch. This is so excited. So I have had an instant love for Kristin since the bookstore started, and we have been doing launches together ever since. I feel like I've grown with her. She had just gotten married. She now has a 4-year-old son. She was pregnant at one of the launches. It's just been so great, and so great for me. And I just really am watching her career in all. I knew it was going to happen because all of her books are great. I love each of them. I read them, and I talk them up all the time. And she's just a wonderful person on top of that. So if you wanted, again, we'll be posting the link to get the wine bottle if anybody's in. You have to buy it directly from Quantum Leap. I don't have a liquor license, so I can't sell alcohol. But if you want, it's very inexpensive winery. It's good wine too. So it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to start, and I'm going to just ask Kristin to talk a little bit about her book. But wait, I just forgot something. There's something else I want to mention. So last year, her book was The Winemaker's Wife, and I don't know if any of you have read the book. You should. It's really great. Maybe we can have her talk a little bit about it tonight. But she was having the launch for the paperback in March, right at the beginning of when businesses were starting to shut down and when people were starting to get scared about congregating in large groups. We had already had it scheduled, and we were having it at the JCC in Maitland. And that it was that event that pretty much solidified that we were going to have to stop having events. We had, I don't know, like 60, 75 people that were coming for the paperback launch of The Winemaker's Wife. She had already had a launch for the hardbound, but it was apparent that night, half the people showed up. A lot of the people we talked to were getting worried, you know, kind of like hunkering down and beginning to talk about, you know, what was going to happen and can we go out, and it was her, she she wasn't able to have the launch for her tour for The Winemaker's Wife. So Kristin's been hit twice by the virus. She's hit, then she's been hit this time, and then she's been hit this time. So Kristin, take it away. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. And for those of you who do not live in the Orlando area, who are not familiar with Writer's Block, it is one of my favorite stores. It is just such a warm, welcoming, well-curated place. And Lauren's passion for what she's doing is so evident. So it is a bookstore. I mean, Lauren mentioned that we've kind of been doing this together since the very beginning of her store. But I couldn't be prouder to be partners with you in this. It's I am a huge advocate for supporting local booksellers, especially now because I think, you know, local businesses need our support now more than ever. And I'm just happy to be doing this with you, Lauren, because I love your store so much and I love you so much. And this is just great. So, and yes, I do have to say the launch that we had for The Winemaker's Wife in paperback, it was March 12th. The book came out March 17th, and I had 2 solid weeks, I think, of tour dates booked, and we did not do a single one. So if not for your launch, I wouldn't have done anything. So thank you for giving me my one and only live, like before the pandemic book tour stop. I appreciate it. So I'll tell you a little bit about the Book of Lost Names, and thank you so much to all of you who have bought it already. That's so kind of you. It means so much. To those of you who haven't, I hope you will consider buying it from Writer's Block if you're thinking about buying it at all. The books come autographed, and it is a great business to support. So the Book of Lost Names is the story of a female forger during World War II who finds her way into the French Resistance, sort of through a series of events. She's not looking to become involved, but she winds up saving the lives of hundreds of children through that work. So she and her mother are fleeing the Nazis after the arrest of her father. Her parents are both Polish-born Jewish people. So they're fleeing the Nazis, and they wind up in a small French mountain town in the unoccupied zone, where a priest who works for the local resistance network finds out about the papers that she falsified for herself and her mother to get out of Paris, approaches her, and offers her help in getting her father out of detention in exchange for her helping him with some document forgeries. So she agrees because she's concerned about her father. And soon she meets Remy, who is another forger within the network. He comes from Paris. He has a little bit of an ego. So it makes him a little bit difficult to work with. He has a little bit of a mysterious past. He's kind of an interesting character. So so she meets him. He takes her on as his assistant, but it turns out she's actually kind of more skilled at this than he is. Hey, Susan, I just saw you get here. So she's passionate, not just about saving the children who they're falsifying documents for, but also about preserving their real identities, especially those who are too young to remember who they really are when their names have been changed. So they decide to encode those identities in a 1732 religious text that they begin referring to as the Book of Lost Names, hence the title of the novel. But toward the end of the war, after their resistance cell is blown and Remy disappears, the book disappears too, looted by the Nazis as they pull out of France, which was a real thing. The Nazis looted a ton of books, especially toward the end of the war. So 60 years later, Ava, the main character, is a librarian working in Winter Park, Florida, just down the street from where Lauren's store is. And she happens to glimpse the book in an article in the New York Times about Nazi looted books and the search to return them to their rightful owners. So as the story unfolds in the past, we also see Ava in 2005 trying to summon the courage to travel to Berlin to finally uncover the last secret and the last mystery held within the pages of the Book of Lost Names.
So, you know, I would just put a note in there. I forgot to ask you to read. Do you have a book? Can you read like the very first paragraph? Because for all of us in Orlando, when I read it, I thought I felt like a big celebrity. I thought.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, and I should say it's not direct. I don't know any librarians at the Winter Park Library other than just meeting them in passing at events. So it's not directly based on anybody there. I just, you know, I wanted to pick a library that was close to home that I care about. So, yeah, let me just read the first.
Couple sentences.
It's like a just a first sentence. Well, the first sentence says.
The chapter's fine, but the
oh no, I wasn't going to read a chapter. Maybe like okay, but just the first sentence is: it's a Saturday morning, and I'm midway through my shift at the Winter Park Public Library when I see it. The book I last laid eyes on more than 6 decades ago. The book I believed had vanished forever. The book that meant everything to me. So I can read a little bit more later if you want, but that's the lead-in that begins with Winter Park, just down the street from Writer's Block.
It was a hook. It was a hook. You know, it was just so great. And throughout the beginning of the book, she talks about walking home. You know, so she's about her business in Orlando. For those of you that don't live in this area, Winter Park is just a suburb of Orlando. So anyway. How did you personally come up with the idea? How did you find out about the Book of Lost Names?
So as many of you know, who have maybe read my books before, I like writing about World War II, and I really like writing about France. So this is my 5th book set during World War II, or at least partially, and my 4th book set during in France during World War II. So in particularly my last 2 novels, The Room on Rue Amélie, which was 2018, and The Winemaker's Wife, which was 2019. I had characters who were involved in some way with the French resistance. And in each of those books, there were mentions of people getting out of the country or getting to a different part of the country using false papers. But I wasn't really thinking as I was writing those books, well, there had to be somebody creating those papers. And it was toward the tail end of the research from The Winemaker's Wife that I really began thinking, wait a minute, like that was a really important job in the resistance. And I feel like I haven't read that much about it. And I was just saying this, I had a Zoom about an hour ago at 6 o'clock too. And I was saying, I'm really drawn, I think again and again, to the idea of ordinary people rising up to do extraordinary things. And document forgers seemed like a perfect example of that. And the more research I did, the more I realized that was true. These weren't people who, you know, loved forging documents and were like, oh yes, finally an opportunity for my forgeries. No, these were ordinary people, most of whom stumbled into this by accident. And the most prolific of which stumbled into it because of the need to forge documents for themselves or people they loved. So I loved that idea of kind of falling into this, this work that wound up playing a significant role in saving hundreds of thousands of people. So that's kind of where the initial idea came from, but it didn't totally feel like enough for a book to me until my agent sent me a New York Times article about the Nazi looting of books. And I thought, that is it. That is the story to wrap around the forgery story. So the book kind of comes from these 2 different separate avenues of research, one into the whole idea of returning Nazi looted books to their owners, which is kind of the framework of the present, and one about the journey of document forgers and the dangers they faced and the way they actually did it, which was sort of a fascinating thing to learn. So you asked specifically about the Book of Lost Names, the book within the book, and that's not real. So the document, the Book of Lost Names is based very much on the real stories of document forgers, exactly the way they forged, how they got into it, the dangers they faced. things like that. But the actual Book of Lost Names, the 1732 religious text, though it is physically based on this religious text I have, the code in it is something from my own imagination. So the main character, Ava, and Remy, the other forger, keep a record, as I mentioned in the introduction, keep a record of the children's names they've changed in this using a code called the Fibonacci sequence, which is a mathematical code that I was obsessed with when I was a little kid. I was a math geek when I was little. I mean, I've always loved reading, but math was my thing. And I would lie in bed at night, this is probably when I was like 8 or 9, and run the Fibonacci sequence in my head again and again and again. Like, it was my life's goal to solve like unsolvable math problems that mathematicians couldn't solve. So I love the idea that this Fibonacci sequence I was obsessed with for no apparent reason became a part of this book.
So I noticed that in a lot of the books, all of your books, there is the woman, you know, and the women, I've noticed in The Winemaker's Wife and both in this book that, like you said, they start as reluctant heroes. And I like how in the books that we really know which way they're going to turn, you know, and like even in Winemaker's Wife, it was even more apparent about who was the hero and who wasn't, and you know, and who and you know, and the way that I could really tell is that in your writing, as the reader, I kind of the character kind of grows with me. Like maybe they were not such great people in the beginning, but they became better people. And you know, and there's some plot. The Winemaker's Wife especially has got a little bit more plot twists. I think if anybody hasn't read that book yet, it's really good, and it's now in paperback. Because there are 2 female characters in that book where you really aren't sure. You know, you care about both of them, but not sure exactly what their relationship is and who's really doing the right thing. And you know, you're looking for the bad guy and you can't find him, you know. And so it was really good. But I noticed that all of your books are like that too, like The Sweetness of Forgetting with the grandmother and all of that. I think that's really interesting about, you know, women, especially, and how they are so smart and how they adapt to situations, especially in World War II, when women weren't really thought of that way and weren't given credit for it.
Well, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned that like the characters kind of grow and change over the course of the book, of all my books. And I appreciate you pointing that out, because that's something I try to do. I mean, I'm writing about them in the times of crisis in their lives, right? I mean, I'm writing about them in these, the hardest time they're ever going to go through, the darkest time they're ever going to go through. And the people who rise up to become extraordinary are the ones who are capable of great change. And I was just saying this in the last chat too. I just talked the other day. It was fascinating. I talked the other day to a Holocaust survivor. He's going to be 93 this Tuesday, the day that the Book of Lost Names comes out. And he said to me a couple times, hardship teaches life, sorrow teaches life. And I thought that's so true. And the more difficult things you go through, the more you grow, the more you learn to live life. And I think that's kind of behind the growth of the characters and the character development you mentioned. And I'm sorry if I cut you off if you're about to ask me a really pointed question. And I was like, I'm just going to talk about characters now.
No, go ahead. You know, but that's good, because your statement made me think of something else about the characters, you know, growing up, you know, in the stories and growing up. But then I'm noticing that as they become adults or they immigrate to other countries or they go on to become older and living normal lives, that they become secretive about their past. Do you have experience, like from talking to survivors or historians, when you do your research, that a lot of survivors really don't share these stories with their own families?
Yeah, I think that is very true, that a lot of survivors, I mean, a lot of survivors do. You know, one of the things that interests me about writing about this time period, and particularly people who have gone through something as as horrific as being in a concentration camp or having to struggle for survival in some way. There are so many psychological reactions to that. And so one of the things that made me write The Sweetness of Forgetting, which was my 2012 novel and the first time I wrote about the Holocaust, the first time I wrote about World War II, was a story I had done for People magazine about a man named Henry Landworth who founded Give Kids the World, which is an Orlando area charity. It's an Orlando area organization in Kissimmee, actually, that gives terminally ill children and their families one last dream vacation. And I shouldn't say one last. Some of the children live, but it's children for the most part with very serious terminal illnesses. And so Henry Landworth founded this. He was a Holocaust survivor. He had been in concentration camps from the age of 13 to the age of 18. He came to the United States with $20 in his pocket, worked his way up, became a millionaire, became best friends with John Glenn and Walter Cronkite. I mean, a true American success story. But the thing that stuck with me most about our interview, even more so than talking to Walter Cronkite and talking to John Glenn and having them both say he was one of the most extraordinary people they'd ever known, which is, I mean, that's high praise, right? One of the things that stuck with me most was him saying that he had to turn his feelings off in order to survive the concentration camp. I mean, he was there for almost 5 years. And after he turned them off, he did not know how to turn them back on again. And I thought that was such an interesting, insightful thing to hear. And that has stayed with me. It influenced the character of the grandmother in The Sweetness of Forgetting. And Henry certainly wasn't secretive about his past. It was a part of his story. But I think that for some people who have something really traumatic like that happen to them, some of them react by wanting to share. Some of them react by never wanting to talk about it again and by retreating inward rather than sort of sharing and moving outward and asking for support. So the psychology of the myriad reactions just is very interesting to me.
Yeah, like I think it's been a couple of years since I've read Winemaker Wife, but it was Ina, right? Or Ida.
Inez, yeah, yep.
Inez, yeah. She, she couldn't. She could. I don't know. I'm not going to spoil this, but she couldn't talk about it for a really long time.
Yeah.
And it definitely was a conversation that needed to be had. And in the Book of Lost Names, it's kind of similar because now she pretty much decides she's going to do something early on in the book, so it's not a big spoiler, but she's going to have to confess to family about what's going on so that she can go on this journey to find the book. And and the thoughts that are running through her head about I'm not the same person that I was then. They're not going to understand who I am. They know nothing about me. I was thinking, wow, that, to have that your whole life, to know that you've been a hero your whole life and nobody knows that you were a hero your whole life, but I could really relate to that. I'm going to go ahead and start opening up questions for people that want to talk to you, say hi, ask any questions.
And I have to tell you, while you're doing that, you and I have been talking earlier about how nice this was. Like, I don't have to put on high heels. I'm wearing like sweatpants on the bottom. But I would just like to inform you that my leg has just totally fallen asleep. So I've now discovered like the negative to doing a book tour at home, because I've never had my leg just entirely fall asleep before during a live, like during an in-person event. So if you see me over here like shaking my foot out, it's because like this is apparently what happens during a Zoom. Now we know.
Sitting all day long.
Yes.
So is there anybody that, how do we want to do this? Do we have, open up the, what? Okay. While people are letting us know who wants to ask questions, will you pick a portion of your book and read it so we can see who wants to talk to you and unmute them?
Yeah, sure. You know what? I'll just read those first few sentences again and read. That's what I've been doing, just reading about a page and a half, the first page and a half. So it's a Saturday morning and I'm midway through my shift at the Winter Park Public Library when I see it. The book I last laid eyes on more than 6 decades ago. The book I believed had vanished forever. The book that meant everything to me. It's staring out at me from a photograph in the New York Times, which someone has left open on the returns desk. The world goes silent as I reach for the newspaper, my hand trembling, nearly as much as it did the last time I held the book. It can't be, I whisper. I gaze at the picture. A man in his 70s looks back at me, his snowy hair sparse and wispy, his eyes frog-like behind bulbous glasses. 60 years after end of World War II, German librarian seeks to reunite looted books with rightful owners, declares the headline. And I want to cry out to the man in the image that I am the rightful owner of the book he's holding. The faded, leather-bound volume with the peeling bottom right corner and the gilded spine bearing the name Epître et Évangile. My French is terrible. It belongs to me and to Remy, a man who died long ago, a man I vowed after the war to think of no more. But he's been in my thoughts this week anyhow, despite my best efforts. Tomorrow, the 8th of May, the world will celebrate the 60th anniversary of Victory in Europe Day. It's impossible, with all the young newscasters speaking solemnly of the war as if they could conceivably understand it, not to think of Remy, not to think of the time we spent together then, not to think of the people we saved and the way it all ended. Though my son tells me I'm blessed to have such a sharp mind in my old age, like most blessings, this one is mixed. Most days I just long to forget. So that's the beginning, the very, very like page and a half, first page and a half.
So Anissa Joy,
Anissa, right? Yay, Anissa.
is she unmuted?
Where did she go? Hey, Anissa, I don't see you. Let me scroll. Oh, there you are, Anissa. Can you unmute? Oh wait, there you go. I think I unmuted you.
You might be able to unmute her also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here. Okay.
I am clicking unmute and it's not working for some reason. There you go. Okay, Anissa, you're unmuted.
I think 3 of us are clicking at the same time.
Sorry. Oh, hey, Lori. I just saw Lori too. Lori Goodrow. Okay. Hey.
I was curious, other than your friends and fiction friends, author friends, who are some authors who inspire you?
Oh, that's a great question. So Anissa mentioned Friends in Fiction, which for those of you who don't know is the Wednesday night Facebook Live we've been doing since April, and that is with 4 of my closest author friends, Mary Kay Andrews, Mary Alice Monroe, Christy Woodson Harvey, and Patty Callahan Henry. So those 4 are like my writing soul sisters right now. Other writers that I really admire and who inspire me though, that's a great question. I've been doing a few of these events with Fiona Davis. I'm a huge admirer of hers. We were actually supposed to have our books come out on the same day. They were supposed to come out, both of them, on Tuesday, and hers got pushed back 2 weeks. But her new one's called The Lions of Fifth Avenue, and it's also about a librarian. We have so many areas of commonality between those 2 books. But I love Fiona. She's just so good at what she does. She writes historical fiction in New York. Christina McMorris, I love. She's one of the loveliest people you will ever meet, and Sold on a Monday is such a beautiful book. I'm a big admirer of Kristin Hanna. I know, who isn't, right? But she wrote The Nightingale, which is just such a huge hit. Actually, Anissa, as I'm saying all this, I'm realizing that like everybody who I love has been or will be on Friends in Fiction. So we had Kristin Hanna on in June. We had Delia Owens on at the beginning of July. I'm a huge admirer of Where the Crawdads Sing. Gosh, there's so many YA writers I love: Alison Noel, Wendy Tolliver, Alison Van Diepen, Emily Wing Smith, Linda Gerber. Oh my gosh, there's so many writers. There's so many people. I'm gonna realize as soon as we move on to the next question that I missed somebody super important. David James Poissant, who's another local writer, just had Lake Life come out a couple weeks ago. That's a fabulous book. He just has such a way with words and with family drama. There's just so many people out there right now doing good work. I'm just happy to have a book among them. I'm so happy people keep reading mine because there's so many other wonderful books too. Great question, Anissa. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Elizabeth asked about did you have any input on the cover?
I didn't, but like I was saying earlier, I first have to say that this cover designer, her name is Chelsea McGuckin. I might be saying her last name incorrectly. She's fabulous. This is, I think, my either 3rd or 4th cover she has designed. I think it's my 3rd cover she's designed, and I've loved my last few covers. The Room on Rue Amelie is beautiful. The Winemaker's Wife was beautiful, but I think this is my favorite cover I've ever had. The colors are gorgeous. I love that the spine is just like the spine of an old book. And Michelle Marcus, I hear you saying that my cover designer is beautiful, or it is great. Keep her. I for sure will. But like I mentioned before, So Chelsea and I had no communication about this cover before she came up with this. I love that it essentially features the real book of lost names, and she didn't know. I mean, look, like the spines even look the same. It's insane. Like, it just makes me think this was meant to be. This feels like the book of magic from start to finish. So yeah, no, I did not have input, but I could not be happier. So yeah.
Anybody else? Yes? We just unmuted somebody. Who did we unmute?
So it was it two?
I don't know if I'm unmuted, but I'm curious to know what's, okay, I want to know what got you interested in World War II and Jews in particular.
What's my interest in World War II and Jews in particular?
Yes.
So World War II, I think dates back to when I was a kid. And I was actually I feel like, I'm sorry, Anissa, I'm sorry, Michelle, all these people who have been with me for a couple Zooms now, you're going to keep hearing me say the same thing over and over. I'm sorry. I'll try to say it in different words so it sounds different. But no, one of my favorite books from childhood was The Diary of Anne Frank. I think I read it for the first time when I was maybe around 12. And as I was saying in the last Zoom I did, that Anissa and Michelle and and Susan and a few other people were there for, it was the first time I realized that books could have an impact on people's lives. Books could change lives. And I think prior to that, I had always thought you could do something like politics, right? Or something, or, work for a nonprofit or whatever. And that was how to change the world. And then books were how you entertained people. And I think it was just the first time that in my head it clicked that I could do the thing I loved, which was to write, but that could also be a way to make the world a better place, right? So that was The Diary of Anne Frank. I read it probably a dozen times. It just touched me so deeply. And in fact, I found recently, like a year or so ago, a short story that I wrote for a contest it was either 7th or 8th grade. It was about a girl in a concentration camp. So like, clearly this has been something I've been trying to do, or my heart has been in for a long time. I lived in Paris in my early 20s, and that's kind of the fascination with France. And then after living there, I learned that my dad's grandmother was actually French and had lived a couple blocks where I lived. Paris. And so living in Paris, I think, and then walking in those footsteps of people who had lived through that awful time period there, further deepened my interest. And then the Jewish element in particular, I'm Catholic. I was raised Catholic, but my dad's side of the family is Jewish. My dad was not raised particularly religious or anything, so it was just never really a part of my childhood. But when I was in my early 20s, I connected with my dad's cousin, who is still one of my favorite family members. Her name's Kristin Harmel. And she's kind of the one who introduced me to that side of my family. She had grown up more religious than my father had. They're first cousins, and that began this exploration of that part of my own family history that I never really knew. So I come to it from a really interesting place as someone who has that in her blood but doesn't have that in the culture that she was raised with. And the more I've written about it, the more it's been an exploration of who I am and who my family is in total, if that makes sense.
No, wonderful. It certainly does. Thank you. And I loved all your books, so I'm looking forward to reading this one.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that so much.
Hi,
I know before Debbie's going to talk, but I know that when I first started doing events with her, I'd asked her about how she got to know about the Jewish culture, and she was telling me that in the beginning that she had consulted with rabbis and did a lot of research, because it reads like someone is the person Jewish, and so, which I think is really fascinating, that she spent a lot of time in the beginning trying to understand Jewish people and talking to a rabbi. So I think that's pretty cool.
Thanks for mentioning that.
Okay, Debbie.
Hey, Debbie.
Hi, Kristin. I really enjoy Friends in Fiction every Wednesday night. So thank you so much for all your hard work that you do with that. I actually have a two-part question. If you could co-write a book with anyone, who would you co-write with?
Oh my gosh, can I say the friends and fiction authors? Is that, I mean, because like that would be my dream. Because okay, so the five, okay, so again, friends and fiction, it's this Facebook group we do. We have about 13,000 members, and we do a live show every Wednesday at 7. But that's kind of how it started. But the five of us have become, we were all friends before, but we've become such close friends, and we write together every single morning now, like including Saturdays and Sundays. I mean, sometimes one of us can't make it, but it's our morning sprints. We're not reading each other's work or anything, but I'm always at my computer by 6:45. Oh, Barbara's saying she thinks I should write a book with Patty. Yes, Patty Callahan Henry. That's who I want to write a book with. She's one of the friends and fiction authors. So we'll all do it together. We sprint together every morning. And that is how I'm getting 1,000 words on the page every day. And prior to that, because of this pandemic, because, I have my 4-year-old son home with me, I don't have a lot of time, but it was discovering that ability to sprint in the morning with these writers who inspire me and who keep me accountable, that has kind of re-injected this magic into the whole writing process. And I feel like how much more magic would it be if we were actually working on something together? So there's my pie in the sky, like, let's all write a book together.
That would be great. The other
You could.
part of my question is, who has influenced you the most in your life and in your writing?
In my writing. It's a really good question. I mean, honestly, probably Anne Frank. I mean, that sounds just because that was such a profound realization for me that that you could move people with words, and that writing about that time period could still resonate so much today. And I know that sounds silly. I know it's like, oh, I read about World War II, so I'm going to mention the most famous, like, World War II. Like, don't you know anyone else from World War II? But no, I mean, but that really did. It resonated with me on just so many levels. And then I guess I would say the other big influence on my writing, this is going to sound silly, but my editor Abby, she and I have really, I feel like, grown together. She's a really good writer too. I mean, I'm very fortunate. She's my editor, but she's also part of the marketing department at my publisher. So she's great at the marketing side of things, which fascinates me. I mean, I'm all about, like, let me check my numbers. That fascinates me. So she's a great partner there, but she's a good writer she's a wonderful writer in her own right too. We've been working together since The Sweetness of Forgetting, which was my 2012 novel. And so we've grown and changed and developed both individually and as a team together. And without a doubt, she's made me a significantly better writer over the course of the, 6 books now we've worked on together. So Anne Frank plus Abby Zeidel. Those are my two big influences. Silly answer, but that's it.
I just want to say one other thing. I read out loud to my mom, my 82-year-old mom, and my husband, and we all love The Winemaker's Wife. And my mom, I have already gotten your new book. It was shipped early, and after she heard your voice tonight, she said, that is the next book you're reading to me.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you so much, Debbie. I hope you enjoy it, and say hi to your mom for me. Thank you. That's really nice of you to say that.
Thank you.
Who else would like to talk to Kristin? Do we have somebody? Yes. Who? Elizabeth.
Oh, Elizabeth. Hey, Elizabeth Silver. How's it going?
I just want to say hi. I didn't have a question, except I just asked you before about the covers. I love every single cover.
Thank you. Where did you go, Elizabeth? Okay, there you are. Sorry, something just covered you up for a second. Thank you. Yeah, I love the covers too. I've been really, really happy with them. I've certainly lucked out there.
Just gorgeous. Yeah, and I've gotten a couple of friends to read your books, so.
Elizabeth, you've been such a nice supporter over the years. I really appreciate it. And people ask me if I read my reviews, and I know I'm not supposed to, because that's just a way to torture yourself. But I am fortunate that when I go to Goodreads, your review of this book pops up toward the top, and so it just makes me feel good. Thank you very much.
I'll have the full one on.
Elizabeth makes me, so it's okay. All is well in the world.
My full review will be on, I can't do it on your pub day. It'll be the next day.
Well,
the
thank
full.
you. I appreciate the support and I appreciate your kind words.
You're so welcome.
I don't get to say it enough, but it means a lot. So thank you.
Thank you for your books.
So is
Yeah.
anybody else? Yes.
Michelle there? Is that who's
Oh,
unmuted?
Michelle's here. Yes, Michelle's here. Hey, I'm so excited to meet with you. It's so awesome. I would like to know, does your family read the books that you write? Because they're just amazing. And I wondered what your family thinks about what you write.
That's a good question. So it's funny. My husband is not a huge reader. So I mean, he reads my books, but he reads them not super quickly. So I'm not sure he's read this one yet. So we haven't actually discussed it. He runs a summer program for a local nonprofit. So he's been insane lately. Like, this is basically the worst time that my book could possibly be coming out, because he's at his busiest, I'm at my busiest, and like we don't really feel safe having anyone come in to watch our 4-year-old. So like we're just like losing our minds right now. So he gets a pass on, I think, not having read it yet. But yeah, I do have family members who are really supportive and have read my books since day one. Like I know my dad's always really eager to read my books, which is nice. I don't think my mom's read this one yet, but she's always supportive. My Aunt Donna is a really avid reader. She's kind of one of the people that I really idolized when I was a kid, because she's only like 14 or 15 years older than me. So she was always the cool aunt who, and she read a ton. So it was like, oh, well, Aunt Donna reads. Reading is so cool. So like whenever she reads my books, I'm always like, yay, cool, Aunt Donna likes my books. But and my mother-in-law has just picked up the book the other day, and she's been really excited about it too. So yeah, thank you. And
I love that.
it's funny though, like people, yeah. No, it's nice. I have a really supportive family, and it's interesting because a lot of people say, do you draw characters from real life, or are they based on anyone in your real life? I think I would feel a lot more uncomfortable about my family members reading my books if I was basing anything on them. But these are just stories that really have nothing to do with them. So I don't feel that sense of like, oh no, like they're going to recognize themselves in the story and what will they think? I think that would hold me back more as a writer. So so I like that they're kind of independent of my family, but something that they can hopefully enjoy.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like Becky's been unmuted. Is that who's up next? Becky,
Kristin,
yes.
how are you?
Hey, good. How about you?
Great. Love the World War II, the strong women, the resistance. Really excited to read the latest one, and want to know if you're able to give us any inkling or about the next project, or what's gnawing in your brain as far as, who or what, or any little tidbits to tantalize us.
Yeah. Well, great question. So, thanks to those sprints I've been doing with the other friends and fiction writers, I am about 47,000 words into it, which is a little less than halfway. Actually,
nice.
My books tend to be about 100,000 words, but 47,000 doesn't exactly equal almost halfway, because I write really long at the beginning. I mean, I repeat myself a lot. I have a lot of repeated words, whatever. So yes, I'm well into it. It's set in World War II, but for the first time in a while, it's not World War II France. It's farther east, so it's World War II. At the time, it was World War II Poland. So I will say that, and I will say that I have been enormously enjoying the research for this one. It is a little bit outside of my comfort zone, which I really like. It involves people who were hiding in the forest during World War II, and so it involves a lot of wilderness survival and a lot of things like how to kill a man with your bare hands. And so those are not things I know how to do, but now I do. So you guys all better read my book, because now I know how to kill you with my bare hands. So I'm just kidding. But yeah, I've been working on that, and one of the neat things I've been getting to do for that is to interview some people who survived that time period in that place, in that part of the world, which has been, it has just, I don't know how to put it, it's just filled my heart with sorrow that had happened to them, and joy that they've come through it, and hope for our future. I mean, it's been really inspiring, and just a really interesting avenue of research. So thanks for asking.
But you have a magical way of translating what you learn to a page that helps us learn and embrace. And that is a gift. That is amazing.
Thank you, Becky. Thank you. Well, it's one of my favorite things about both reading and writing about World War II. And I love the idea of learning things myself that maybe aren't commonly known, and sharing them in an interesting, or hopefully interesting, way. So thank you. That means a lot to me. And it's, it's one reason why I put a lot of work into my author's notes now, because I want you to know what from the story is true, and where I pulled it from, and why, if that makes sense. And in fact, it's funny, I've already written half of the author's note for this book, and I've never done that before. I've never even touched or thought about the author's note before I finished writing the first draft. But the research has been such a compelling part of it that I'm like, I have to put this down. Like, I have to get this down while the thoughts are still in my head and in my heart. And so get ready for an author's note that will tug at your heartstrings too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so because one of the questions were, did you get a chance to talk to Holocaust survivors? So sounds like you had a chance to do that here, if it's going to tug at our hearts.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing. I think, unfortunately, those opportunities are getting fewer and fewer as the years go by, right? I mean, even the ones who are still with us and who have survived are getting on in years, and maybe don't have some of the memories with the same clarity that they would have 10 years prior or whatever. So, but it's been a really incredible, fulfilling thing to do. And maybe it's coming from a journalism background, but my books don't feel complete unless I've talked to people, actual people with firsthand knowledge of what I'm writing about. And I don't always mean the Holocaust aspect. Like, for example, The Winemaker's Wife, which was set in Champagne, France. A big part of that research was talking to champagne makers about how they make champagne. I mean, but that felt essential because I needed to know that firsthand knowledge that I couldn't necessarily pull entirely from books. So the talking to people really, really shapes the novels.
Is there anybody else? Yes.
Hi, Kristin, it's Paige.
Hey, Paige, how are you?
I'm doing great. Becky asked a question that I had, but I have another question that I would like to ask, because I know you talk about how you do the research for each book, but do you keep a list of ideas that pop into your head? You're going through some research and then maybe you see some tidbit that you're like, ooh, I would really love to expand on this and write later on about this. Do you keep like a running box of ideas?
That is such a good question, and maybe I should. But you know what? I don't. And the reason I don't is because once an idea is written down, like if I have committed to an idea enough to say, hey, this might make a future book, if I have written it down, it's too much in my head. And if I'm writing a current book, it derails me, because all I'm thinking about is the next idea. And like, I need it sounds so weird, but like, I feel like I do some of my best plotting and detail work when I'm not actively thinking about the book, because my brain's kind of churning in the background.
Sure.
So if it's churning in the background in relation to another future book idea, it's not doing the work it's supposed to be doing for the current book idea. Sure. So that's one of the reasons why I don't necessarily commit things to paper. The other is that I feel like if it's still with me when I'm ready to sit down and start plotting the next book, it was definitely a good idea. Do you know what I mean? But if I forget about it, then it probably wasn't that compelling of an idea in the first place. But I will say though, once I have finished the first draft of a current book and I'm going through to fill in research, that's when I start jotting down ideas for the next book, because all that like back of the brain work has already been done. Like the first draft is on the page, and now I'm just refining it and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And there's room for other ideas to percolate. Does that make sense?
Yeah. How long does it take to get through that first draft?
It varies from book to book. The pace I'm on now is approximately 5,000 words a week, which means that it probably takes about 20 weeks to write a first draft. But that's very much an approximation because it's slower at the beginning when you're getting into it. It's a lot faster at the end when you're like, oh, I know where this is going. I'm so excited to see what happens next. And it can kind of get away from you in what and Mary Kay Andrews calls it the saggy middle. We talk about the saggy middle a lot because she and I are both in the saggy middle of our first drafts right now. And boy, I mean, she said the other day, I'm like, I'm mired in the quicksand. And I'm like, that's exactly what it feels like. Because like every time you sit down to write, you're just kind of getting sucked a little bit further in and it's not getting you anywhere. So maybe 20 weeks, 20 to 24 weeks for a first draft, maybe. But if you ask me that tomorrow, I might have a different answer because I never really sit down and think, how long is it going to take me? It just kind of, I know when the book is due in that, so it's due November 1st. So it will take me until hopefully like October 15th. And then I will be insane for 2 weeks. And Paige, I'll probably ask you to come over and watch Noah or something.
Sounds good. Well, at least you have the other authors to help you bounce ideas to get through that saggy middle.
Yeah, it has been enormously helpful, even just to know they understand the saggy middle. Like I don't even have to have them help me with ideas. It's more just like, okay, we're all in this together. And that feeling of being understood is so helpful, you know?
Yes. Well, this book's great. It's very exciting.
Paige, I appreciate it.
Seems interesting because I guess you pretty much release one a year. So
yeah, right. It is one a year. So this next one will be out. It will be out next summer. So that's exactly it. Yep. Oops.
So
I didn't just yet.
We have another question.
Hi, I'm Carol Cohen, and I actually send you a private message on the chat. I didn't realize I'd be able to talk to you, but I actually was a little bit late because I rushed back from Boston. My son has been in Brooklyn since, I haven't seen him since January. He came today and I had to see him. So I was a tiny bit late, so I missed the beginning. So I'm wondering if you're having another Zoom meeting to talk about the new book. I came in at about 7:20. So that's my first question.
Oh, well, okay. So we're talking tonight about the Book of Lost Names,
right?
Yep. And so
another Zoom.
Oh, am I gonna have Zoom meetings after this one to talk about it? Yeah. Yes. And so if you go to my website, which is kristinharmel.com, if you click on events, it gives you a list of all the other. So some of them are Zooms like this, some of them are Facebook Lives, like they're all kind of structured differently. But yes, there will be more.
Because I actually got an email from you because what I wanted to say is that The Sweetness of Forgetting is absolutely one of my favorite books, and I'm old and I've read a lot of books. And I want to say that when people say, what is the book about? Because I recommended it to so many people, I wind up with a really long list. Like, it's about the Holocaust, it's about Cape Cod, it's about bakeries, it's about divorce, it's about a love story. It's so I want to say that I've read it 3 times. It's right on my bookstand, my nightstand. I actually have conducted several book groups with this book. I live in Massachusetts, and I belong to book groups, but I belong to a Jewish women's book group, a senior book group. I think about 4 times I've conducted talks with this book using your wonderful map of Paris that's on your website. And I think the reason I'm on your mailing list is because I asked you the last time if you would be able to Zoom in when we were having a meeting, and you were so gracious to get back to me and say you were busy. But no, but seriously, you answered me. So I was wondering, what is the Cape Cod connection?
So I'm originally from Massachusetts. I was born in Newton, and I lived in Peabody when I was young. I only lived there as a young child, but it's where my mom spent her whole childhood. It's where my parents met. They both worked at Mass General. I think that's where it was that they met.
So you were born in Newton?
I was born in Newton, yep, at Newton Wellesley, and my whole mom's side of the family lives up there. So
Oh, okay.
aunts, uncles, cousins. So childhood, every summer we were up there, and Cape Cod specifically. My grandparents had a place in East Dennis, and
Okay.
I have a lot of
Bakeries?
very well, and the sweetness of forgetting, although it was not at all based in reality on my grandmother. My grandmother was not, was not French, was not a Holocaust survivor or whatever on my mom's side. She had dementia, and that was a big element of that novel. And I was writing that novel as we were losing her.
Well, we might be related because my ex-husband's from Newton and the whole family. But I want to just, and I live in Norton, but I wanted to just ask, when you found out about the Jewish relatives, were any of them Holocaust survivors?
They weren't. And I mean, that would have been, gosh, as an author who writes about that time period, wouldn't that have been wonderful if I had people in my own family who I could have talked to about that? But no, everybody that I know of, everybody came over before the war. They had all come to the United States prior to that.
And lastly, any classes that you're giving? For example, I've met Jenna Blum a few times, and in fact, I met her for the third time, I think, in a bookstore in Newton. But she gives classes on Grub Street. Do you give any classes at all, especially during the pandemic? Because I've been writing I write a lot. Yeah.
Well, Carol, I used to years ago. I used to teach a class for Media Bistro, and I did that for many years. But it's just too much now. I mean, I have a 4-year-old. I'm on a book a year. I can't. And I don't know if you've joined us for this yet, but we have a thing called Friends in Fiction that we do every Wednesday night. It's with 4 other authors: Mary Kay Andrews, Mary Alice Monroe, Christy Woodson Harvey, Patty Callahan Henry. So every Wednesday night at 7, it's on Facebook. In fact, our featured bookseller this coming Wednesday, is going to be Writer's Block. It's going to be Lauren's store, which we're so excited about. But we give a writing tip in every episode, and whenever we have a guest, we ask them to give a writing tip. So it's a Facebook live show primarily geared toward readers in support of independent booksellers. We're really trying to support independent stores, but we also recognize that a lot of our members in our audience, there's about 13,000 people on our page. A lot of them are people trying to write their own first novel, particularly during this time. And so we try to help you with that. And we're planning an episode sometime in the fall, we hope, that's going to be more oriented toward here are our best tips for how to write a novel. So join us there if you haven't already. And
well, if you want to hear something really funny, when I came in, I was late, so I went right to the Facebook because I forgot that I got an email about clicking on this, and I got onto the recording from last night, and I said, no, I said on my desk that this was on Thursday night. So that was one of the reasons I was late.
Well, there you go.
Very, very last question. I know you focus a lot on World War II. I have done a lot of research on Eleanor Roosevelt. I portray her actually, and I'm in the middle of writing a book about her. Yeah. Has she factored in at all into your World War II novels as a character?
No, because I don't really write about American politics.
About real people. Well, she was really kind of important in the World War II.
Of course she was, but it's just not what I write about.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Carol.
It took so much time.
Oh, no, you're fine. Thank you. Thank you.
You should invite Jenna Blum to be with on your Friends in Fiction, because she is. We had her at the JCC last year for the JBC, and she was fantastic. And she writes. I think her story was historical fiction, and she is a teacher. You should invite her. She's really a great lady.
Yeah. She's on the long list. We spent about an hour on the phone today talking about here are all the people we want to invite. It's a lot of people.
That's the beauty of it. I mean, that's the silver lining that came out of all of this, is the opportunity for you to bring all these authors together, and everything that could have not happened but for this crisis. So it's just been a real blessing in disguise.
We just have so many interesting people coming up, and we've got the band Sister Hazel this week, which is going to be so much fun. We've got We've got Fiona Davis the week after that, Ellen Hildebrand after that, Karen Slaughter, Christina McMorris, Etaf Rum. Like, it's just going to be, we're just having so much fun. So yeah, it's all good.
Is there anybody? Yes.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi, I'm good. So I had the pleasure of meeting you like 8 months ago at the Reading Festival with Laurie Gaudreau, and I hadn't really read any of your books at that time. You were on my to be read list, and every single time I've cried at one of your books.
I always feel like I should apologize. Sorry for making you cry.
No. As a reader, it's wonderful. It's the fabulous character development, and you just get to know the characters. And you, as a teacher, I'm just so in the book that I just love it.
You, Amy?
Now that everything has gone online, do you feel like you've reached more readers and more people have gravitated toward new? I mean, on the Friends in Fiction, so many new authors that I had never heard before. It's been amazing.
It has been, to me, the greatest gift of this pandemic. I mean, there's so much worrisome, bad stuff going on right now, and it would be so easy to get mired in that. But the greatest gift of it all has been these new connections with people I might not have otherwise met. I don't know how it is in your view, but I can see Anissa right next to you, Anissa Joy Armstrong. So she's also she's very active with Friends in Fiction. She's been with us since the beginning. I consider her a friend now, and I might not have otherwise met her. I mean, that we might not have, or we might have known each other peripherally, but like now I feel like we're friends, and there are probably 100 other people who I feel that kind of new sense of connection with that I only know virtually, none quite as much as Anissa, but Michelle and Brenda, who run our book club too. I've gotten pretty close to them, but it's just been amazing. And even just to do an event like this, like I know a lot of you here tonight are local, but I know a lot of you are from other parts of the country, and you would not have come to my launch party at Quantum Leap in Orlando on a random Thursday night, but here you are, and here we all are together. And like, it's, I love it because I think that after this is all over, after things get back to normal, I think that for all of us who have discovered this as a way to connect, it's always going to be here. I mean, we're going to keep doing Friends in Fiction. And I think a lot, yeah, for sure. I mean, for sure. I cannot imagine not doing it anymore.
It's a highlight of the week.
Well, yay. And I think that for a lot of authors like me who have had books come out in this time period, who are now doing these Zooms or doing these Facebook Lives or whatever, it's going to be something we always do. It's a new normal, and I think it's going to last after that. So yeah, but thank you. Thanks for reading my books, Amy, and that's so nice. Especially thanks for reading my books, because I think you saw me, like, I think we downed a bunch of drinks together at the bar, if I remember correctly, with Lori. So you've seen me at my worst. So.
Or best.
Not a lie. So let me ask you one more. How my library doesn't seem to have, I don't know if they have any of your books in the library.
How silly fools. No, I'm just kidding.
Right? How can I make that happen?
You know, you can ask them, you know, because I mean, of course, buy them from your local bookstore, but I know that if you go to the librarian and make a request, I've done that before with libraries and made requests, you can ask.
And they might have it in system, just not physically in their library. And if it's within the library system, they can usually request it. Not in most library systems. So, but you know what? I'm giving a talk to the Florida Library Association next Friday, so I'm just going to take them to task over that, because I know you're. No, I'm totally kidding. Let me begin tonight by chiding the library system. And where do you live, Seminole? I can't remember. Yeah.
Palm Harbor.
Palm Harbor. Yeah.
But anyway. So great to see you, and I'm so excited about reading this book. And the 3 books I own are signed, so
wow, that's
hard to go forward from there.
But you just have to order it from Writer's Block tonight from Lauren, because that'll be signed.
It's already pre-ordered.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, it's the previous ones I have to get.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay, perfect. Well, we'll just have to meet up with Lori again and have more drinks.
At the bar.
At the bar, yeah.
I'll buy you a glass of wine.
Fantastic. Deal.
So I think we're gonna wrap up a little bit. There's a couple things. There's the on sale day is on the 21st. I know that some of the people that are in the chat might be from the Orlando area. And had this been a normal book launch and we had been at Quantum Leap, you would have gone home with a book. And the publisher is trying to put a strict on sale date. But if there's anybody here that actually did pre-order, I mean, not pre-order, but special ordered, like called the store and they were going to pick it up, just let us know and we'll get it to you this week. And I think that's fair. They don't want us to really sell it until Tuesday, but you know, you're here. Had it been a live launch, you would have walked home with a book. So if you're from Orlando and you actually, for those of you that pre-ordered through the web, those are in the mail. You'll get those. We put them in the mail yesterday, so you should get those in a couple of days. But if you did call and do a special order, just stop by and just let us know that you were at the event tonight, because we're not supposed to be selling, but had this been a launch, you would have gone home with a book. And I just want to do one shout out. One of my oldest and dearest friends is sitting here and she just sent me a private message. Margot, we're 2 days apart and we're from the same town. So I think that I am officially her oldest friend and I think she's officially my oldest friend because we're only 3 days apart. So I just pretty is that I get to see some old friends that just show up and so she sent me a private message. So hi Margot, miss you.
I think I see my old friend Jennifer here too, and I think I see my mother-in-law Wanda. So I see lots of friendly faces. But hi Wanda, hi Jennifer.
Any closing? The book is available. We've put the link on the chat a couple times. We put the link if you do want to get the wine bottle, we have that on the chat. You have to buy it directly from Quantum Leap. We don't sell alcohol. If there's any final thoughts that Kristin has, I'm thanking everybody for coming tonight. It's been very enjoyable. We are recording this, so it will be up on our website if you want to share, or check Kristin's website to see her live. Again, she'll be live many places for the next couple of weeks. So
you're not going to be able to escape me. Every time you turn on your computer, there I am. Sorry in advance. This has been wonderful, Lauren. I appreciate all your support. You've been such a wonderful advocate for my books, for our book loving community here in Orlando. I just feel lucky that our paths have intersected and continue to intersect. So I'm happy to call you a friend and happy to call you my local independent store. And we are so excited to work with you on Friends in Fiction next week as our bookseller of the week.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you at the next Zoom.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a nice night, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.
Bye. Bye, everyone.